Am I the arsehole for not letting my siblings come to my wedding? Story time. So all my siblings are significantly older than me, and I wasn't invited to any of their weddings growing up because they wanted a child-free wedding. So I of course thought I'd be an exception because I was their little sister, like I was part of the family. My older sister Amy got married and she was the first to have a child-free wedding, and then everyone like sheep just followed. When she got married I was 10, so I kind of could see where she was coming from, but you know, I was still really upset. Then my older brother got married when I was 12, and I obviously wasn't invited to that one. And then my sister got married when I was 15, so I was like, great, this is my time, I'm coming to this wedding. Because she had said that she wasn't going to have a child-free wedding. And of course, all my siblings chimed in and convinced her to have a child-free wedding. So she decided that she was going to cut out everyone from the wedding list that was under 16, which obviously included me. And at this point, I got really, really upset that I wasn't going to any of these weddings. So I screamed at my sister and my parents grounded me for 6 months. 6 months. Then my other brother got married when I was 17. So I thought, surely I'm in for this. But not gonna lie, at this point, I was past the point of caring and I was assuming that I wasn't gonna be invited for some silly reason. And of course, I wasn't invited, so I just sent him a really shitty text message that said congrats, and I didn't say anything else about the wedding. The wedding was happening, I just stayed in my room all day with my now soon-to-be husband. So I decided to get a little bit petty, and since I'm now getting married, I decided that none of them were allowed at my wedding. But when the invitations went out, and obviously they didn't get one, they turned up at my house. Ariana, what are you doing here? So I very simply explained, you didn't want me at your wedding, so now I don't want you at mine. I explained that it really, really upset me that I didn't get to see any of my siblings get married and now they should feel the same way. Their excuse. Oh my god, their excuse was that there was alcohol at the wedding and they didn't want any young impressionable eyes seeing people drinking. And all I wanted was to be included in the wedding part. I didn't have any bother about the after party at all. Wow, how long have I had powder in my hair? I'm so sorry. My mum then started screaming. Like, I have never heard anyone scream so loud in my life. She was screaming about how she wanted all of her kids to be together on a beautiful day. It's very ironic season. It very clearly said that if they wanted to be invited for the wedding, I needed a very good reason as to why I wasn't allowed to come to theirs. And not just because of my explanation, no invite. It made no sense to me why they left me out of literally everything up until now. Bit of an awkward silence. Then the truth came out. I wasn't actually their sister. I was actually their cousin. My jaw hit the floor. So apparently my dad was raising me, but when he passed away when I was 2 months old, they had no clue who my mum was. And that was when I was passed over to be raised by my uncle, so my dad. And when I was young, apparently I required quite a lot of attention. So my brothers and sisters started resenting me quite heavily. My brother Steve even went as far as to say that he hated me for that reason. My parents admitted that they were really ashamed that they had never told me. And I just didn't know how to deal with this, so I got up and left. Drama was too much for me. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole here?
What monster plans the murder of their child on Halloween? This disturbed man named Ronald Clark O'Brien. On Halloween in 1974 in Deer Park, Texas, Ronald took his 8-year-old son's life by giving him this candy that was filled with cyanide. From the outside in, Ronald seemed to have a pretty good life. He was married and had 2 kids, Timothy, who was 8 years old, and his daughter Elizabeth. He had a great job as an eye doctor, but Ronald was $94,000 in debt and he needed a way out. On this night, Ronald took his 2 kids to go trick-or-treating, and along came his neighbor with his kids as well. The routine that night was that Ronald would walk to the front doorstep with the kids to collect the candy while his neighbor stayed behind. In one of those house visits, Ronald managed to slip a few pixie sticks filled with cyanide in the kids' candy bag and made it seem like one of the houses gave it to them. When the kids got home, Timothy asked his father to open some candy, and Ronald purposely opened a pixie stick and gave it to Timothy and watched him eat it. Within just 1 hour, Timothy became extremely sick and passed away in the ambulance. Medical records quickly revealed that Timothy was poisoned with cyanide. Once they discovered that the cyanide was inside this specific candy, Ronald claimed that he got it from a house that they visited on that night. But after investigating, they discovered that no one was even in that house on that night, so Ronald was lying. The investigation turned towards Ronald and they discovered that he was asking around where he could find find cyanide. But he became even more suspicious when they found out that he was in so much debt and that he took out a $20,000 life insurance policy on both his kids. And he took out this policy a month before Timothy passed away. And it gets worse. Ronald also called the life insurance company the morning after Timothy passed away to collect the money. He was charged with 1 count of murder and 4 counts of attempted murder and was sentenced to death. Ronald was executed in 1984, but he kept his innocence until the day he died.
My girlfriend brought her ex to the Taylor Swift concert instead of me, so I brought her to the homeless shelter. My girlfriend loved Taylor Swift. She had Taylor Swift everything. The house was covered in Taylor Swift posters. She played her music all the time. I didn't mind that my girlfriend liked her, but sometimes I wondered if it made me second best to her ex, Connor. He loved Taylor Swift. They were still friendly, but their relationship was over. I bought my girlfriend Taylor Swift tickets for her birthday. My girlfriend didn't work, so there was no way she could afford tickets on her own at those crazy prices. I knew she would be very happy. I bought her 2 tickets. I offered to go, but I told her that I didn't really care since I wasn't a huge fan. If she wanted to give the other ticket to her best Swiftie girlfriend Brianna, I was okay with that too. She said she would go with Bri. The day of the concert came and my girlfriend spent hours getting ready. She had to find the perfect thing to wear. Everything had to be just right. I was in the living room watching TV when she left. She walked in to give me a kiss. I thought it was weird that Brianna wasn't there. I figured they were going together. Brianna isn't here? I asked. No, she's meeting me at the concert. She answered, sounding uncomfortable. Then she left. I stayed up the next few hours watching TV. I figured my girlfriend would be posting pictures of the show on Instagram, and I was right. She had some photos of herself in front of the stage, a few pics of Taylor, and then a selfie of her and her ex. They were sitting together in the seats I bought for hundreds of dollars. How could she? I got on my phone and started texting her. You went with Connor? I asked. She didn't text back. I kept texting her, but still no answer. I expected her home around midnight, but she didn't come home, so I crawled into bed. I heard her creep in at 4 in the morning. She smelled like booze. I didn't want to start screaming at her in the middle of the night, so I waited until the next morning. She came into the kitchen at 11 a.m. looking very hungover. I started screaming at her and demanding her to tell me why she went to the concert with her ex. She started to explain that Brianna flaked on her at the last minute, but I didn't want to hear it. She lied to me by telling me she would see Brianna at the concert and she knew she could have asked me to go. I was sickened that I had spent so much money on a ticket for her ex, and I didn't even want to think about why she came home so late last night. I demanded her to leave my home immediately. Then I started throwing her stuff out into the hallway. I just grabbed everything out of her closet and drawers and threw it out the door. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? She kept asking me. You know I have no job. So I grabbed her stuff, threw it into my car, and drove her straight to the homeless shelter. I haven't seen her since. Am I the jerk?
This is everything you should know about the mass shooting that just happened. Last night at 7 p.m. in the city of Lewiston, Maine, a man walked into a bowling alley called Just in Time and began shooting. The suspect, who we now know is 40-year-old Robert Card, drove from the bowling alley to the bar, which was 4 miles away, and began shooting again. At this point, there's 18 people deceased and 13 others were injured. Robert is still on the run, and police have advised everyone in the city to be careful and stay home. Now, what do we know about Robert Card? Robert's enlisted in the U.S. Army Reserve and has an active military ID. He's also been recognized a number of times with awards and medals while serving. But something that I should know is that back in July, the commanders in the Army Reserve were extremely concerned with Robert because he was just behaving erratic. They called police and he was evaluated and then put into a mental health facility for 2 weeks because he said that he was hearing voices in his head that was telling him to shoot up the military base. Which, I'm no specialist or anything, but 2 weeks in a mental health facility to help someone who's having these kind of thoughts, I don't think that's enough time. What's absolutely devastating is that one of the victims last night who worked at the bar was fatally shot when he tried to attack the shooter with a knife. Robert's family has been working with police and investigators to find Robert, and they've asked him to surrender.
My wife cheated on me with a bald-headed eagle-looking idiot. So I convinced her to get matching tattoos, but I left when she got it first. My wife Jane and I had been happily married for 10 years. Like a lot of couples, we had gained weight over the years. We didn't go out as much, so we weren't as active. My wife started to get upset because she couldn't fit into her jeans anymore. She wanted to start going to the gym and she wanted me to be her fitness buddy. I thought it was a good idea, so I went along with it. Part of the gym program was to match us up with personal trainers. We had our personal training session at the same time but with different trainers. They were both guys. Her guy was this big bald eagle looking dude who looked like he was on steroids. I noticed he kept touching my wife to get her into fitness positions, and they kept laughing and giggling with each other. I got jealous. Later, when we were going home, I confronted my wife about it, but she just said it was innocent. A week later, the gym asked us if we wanted to continue our personal training sessions. I said no, I was fine, but Jane kept up with hers, and every time I'd go to the gym and watch Baldy flirt with my wife. Then she told me that her trainer was only going to be available in the afternoons. We were going in the evening when I was done with work. Jane worked part-time so she could make the afternoon sessions work. I would keep going in the evenings alone. One day I came home from work for lunch. It was rare that I did this, but my boss was out for the afternoon, so I thought I'd take a long relaxed lunch. I thought I would be alone since it was the time Jane was out at the gym, but when I got home I heard screams and moans coming from the bedroom. When I opened the door I saw Bald Eagle pumping my wife. They both saw me. He stopped and ran out as fast as he could. Meanwhile my wife was in the bedroom crying. I asked her to leave. I packed her stuff and threw her suitcase out the door. My wife went to live with Baldy, but it didn't work out. They weren't really in love. She called and begged me to come back. I was sickened by what happened, but I missed her. I let her come into my life. We were taking it slow, having coffee and getting together a few times a week. I knew she was still cheating on me with Baldy, but I played it cool with my wife for the next few days. Then I told her I was ready to commit to her again. To prove it, I wanted to go to a tattoo shop so we could both get tattoos with the date. It would remind us of the date we recommitted our love. I picked out the exact tattoo and everything. I told Jane to get in the chair first. I went in with her to hold her hand and made sure the process got started. After a half hour or so, I told her I had to use the bathroom. Then I ran out of the parlor without my tattoo. Now my wife has a tattoo that will always remind her of the day I ditched her in the tattoo parlor. Am I the jerk? My girlfriend laughed when I proposed to her, so I laughed as I made her homeless. My girlfriend Rachel and I started dating when we met in high school. She was a sweet girl, but she had a lot of problems at home. Her mother had died when she was 10 and she never knew her father. She was unhappy, so my family offered to let her live with us. She and I live together in our finished basement. Now, me and Rachel have been together for 7 years, and I knew that it was finally time to propose. I was working in a grocery store. They had just promoted me to manager. I knew that Rachel liked the finer things in life and I worked really hard to keep her happy, so I saved my money. But whenever I could, I would spend it to take her to nice restaurants and buy her things she liked. I didn't have much money for a ring, but I bought the best thing I could find. I figured I would get her a nicer one when we had more money. I was sure she would understand. I dressed in my best suit. I took her out to a fancy restaurant that she had wanted to go to for a long time. A few minutes after we were seated, I told Rachel to order whatever she wanted, no matter how expensive it is. When it was the perfect time, I got down on one knee, looked at her in the eyes, and asked her to marry me. When I busted out with a ring, Rachel started laughing. I was so excited. She was laughing and was so happy because I finally proposed to her after 7 years. But she just kept laughing and laughing. Tears were coming out of her eyes. I asked her why she was laughing, but she couldn't answer me because she was laughing so hard. Now I was a bit confused, but I went on with it. She saw that I was looking at her wondering what was going on. She finally calmed down enough to tell me what was so funny. She said the diamond is so tiny, and it is impossible to see it without a microscope. Then she looked at me and said that she would never marry a man that would disrespect her like that. She called me broke and a lazy grocery store employee. Then she started laughing even harder. To make things worse, everyone in the restaurant was looking at us and laughing too. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I knew Rachel had expensive taste, but I thought she loved me. I walked out of the restaurant. I had never been more humiliated in my life. I went in my car and left without Rachel. When I got home, the first thing I did was take Rachel's things and throw them out the window. I didn't want to have anything to do with her. When she got back, she asked me what was going on. I told her I didn't want to date her anymore. I said our relationship is over. Even though Rachel had expensive taste, she didn't come from money. Her family was poor. I knew this, so I kicked her out that day. Rachel doesn't have much family, and her mom didn't take her in, so she's probably sleeping on the streets. Am I the jerk?
My spoiled sister framed me so she can steal my inheritance, so I refused to pay for her surgery. My parents were always a little unconventional when it came to getting my sister and I to behave. They would threaten to ground us, or not let us use our phone, but they would never follow through. Pretty soon me and my sister got wise to them, so they tried another strategy. They would write us out of their wills and give our inheritance to the other sibling. They would actually get on the computer and do it too. If we behaved, they would change the will back, so it worked pretty well. When we got older, we moved out of our home, so it wasn't up to our parents to make us behave. But still, if there was a disagreement, there they would go changing their wills. A little bit of important background on my sister. She was always sensitive about her nose. It was pretty big. She would beg my family for a nose job, but they told her she was beautiful the way she was. They spoiled her because they felt bad about her nose, but they wouldn't let her get the surgery. My sister was now on her own and could make her own decisions. Since she was broke and I had a decent paying job, she asked me if I could pay for the surgery. She told me she would pay me back eventually. I said okay. She scheduled the surgery a few months out. She was finalizing the details with the doctor on the phone when my mother was passing by and heard her talking, and she freaked out. She told her she was forbidden from having the surgery. She told her she would take her out of the will and throw her out of her home if she got the operation. My sister turned the tables and told them that I had been the one that made her get the surgery. She said I teased her and told her she looked awful and that she would never get married with her nose looking like that. She told them that I even offered to pay for the surgery. My parents believed her since she was their golden child. She freaked out and wrote me out of the will. They told my sister they would give all their money to her instead, and this time I knew they were serious. A year passed, and they still didn't put me back on the will, but this is when the will became reality. My parents tragically passed in a car accident. I didn't care about the will anymore. I just missed my parents. But that didn't change the fact that my sister was the one who would be getting their entire inheritance. With my sister's newfound wealth, she blew all of the money in a matter of weeks. She got really bad into gambling, and would buy luxury clothing so she could show off on social media. Once she ran completely dry, she called me out of the blue. She demanded that I pay for her nose job because it would be really messed up if I backed on my deal. I told her that how dare she had the audacity to ask for more money after being the only one in our parents' will. It's been 4 years and I haven't spoke to my sister since. Am I the jerk?